Shabbat Shalom, Yalak here again. It's the Hebrew New Year, March 11, 2017 is today's date, and the lesson today is entitled Sabbath Shows Covenant Relationship. And this is going to show the importance of the Sabbath. Now, the commandment, we usually refer to it as the fourth commandment, but it says here in Exodus chapter 20 and verse 8, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy, or to keep it Kadash. When we look at this word Sabbath, just gonna share how the meaning of it actually shows that it is different from the other days of the week as far as the Creator has made known to us from the start. Some people say in Genesis, when it said that he rested on the seventh day, that he didn't set it as a commandment, so that doesn't necessarily mean that we have to follow it. And so they go on from that to say, when it was given to Israel to keep the Sabbath, that it was just for Israel and it's not for Gentiles, it's not for anybody else, it's not for the New Testament Christians or the Christians that came out of New Testament teachings, right? They're saying, because when we say the Most High, he set up the Sabbath from the start in Genesis and the creation story, they're saying you can't go back to that because that wasn't a law that he was setting up. But actually, when you look at it some more, the word Sabbath, you see that the Creator was actually using the Sabbath before Israel was told to use it. And you got this little saying that says, like father, like son, right? So basically the Most High, being the Creator, is already living like that, where he is setting the seventh day apart, treating it in a special way, showing that it's different. And so everyone else who's going to come into a relationship with him is going to be expected to do the same. So when he rolls it out to Israel now, it's just basically saying, do what I do, live yourselves the way I show that I lived. From the start, I set this certain day apart, showing that it was different from. So they're calling it a law or the teachings of the Most High when it rolled out later on to Israel and to the patriarchs and so on. It's just the Most High bringing it across to us now as something that we should follow by bringing it across in teaching. When you look at this word Sabbath from the commandment I just read in Exodus 20 verse 8, remember the Sabbath day, it says here the Sabbath, and it's talking about different kinds of Sabbath, but it's letting you know that it's a special day. That was H7676, and it's intensive from H7673 in their Strongs. And it's dealing with intermission, specifically the Sabbath, right? It's dealing with intermission. And when they say it's intensive from H7673, it's telling you that there is a deeper understanding that you're supposed to get from this. So they point you to another word, another form of it to show some more understanding, which you get from more of the meanings that they're telling you about it. So it goes to H7673, the Shabbat, and it says it means to cease, desist, rest, which is why they said it speaking of an intermission. So even in the creation story where it says the Most High rested, on the seventh day, that's telling you that he gave himself an intermission right there, or he observed an intermission. So he ceased what he was doing on that seventh day. He desisted from his creations that he did the other 6 days, and he had an intermission, or he rested. Keep that word rest in mind, because I'm going to end with that. So he rested, he desisted from labor, right? He ceased what he was doing. It also means to exterminate or destroy. So as I mentioned, the intensive of 7676 from H7673 includes a meaning that says, a powerful meaning that says to exterminate or destroy. So the intensive of Sabbath, H7676, is telling you to go look at H7673, which gives an intensive or a more powerful kind of definition, which says here to exterminate or destroy, which then means that when it said that he rested in the seventh day, on the seventh day, he was exterminating or destroying that which happened before, or the trend of his labor, the trend of what he was doing before in those other 6 days. So if he is exterminating his actions on the seventh day, he is destroying the actions that he did all those other 6 days, which would be creating stuff. So the act of creating is destroyed on that seventh day, which means he's not dealing with creating anymore, the same way he was doing it from day 1 to day 6. So then Sabbath is telling you that there is a cessation or a stopping of what was going on. So you have an intermission or a rest. That then shows that there is a difference on that seventh day. Now let's look at Exodus chapter 31 and 13. It says here, "Speak thou also unto the children of Israel, saying, Verily my Sabbaths ye shall keep." In other words, verily my intermissions ye shall keep. Verily my rest ye shall keep. For it is a sign between me and you throughout your generations, that ye may know that I am the Most High, that doth sanctify you. So if it is a sign, then it's like I'm saying, based on the title for this lesson, the Sabbath shows a covenant relationship. So he's telling you, by saying it's a sign, he's letting you know that anyone who looks at this people, Israel, who keeps the Sabbath, is going to see a people who has a covenant relationship with the Creator, because no one else is going to be keeping the Sabbath and the other laws the way they are doing, because the covenant is between that particular people group and the Creator. So the sign is there to show that this is the group of people that the Creator is dealing with. Now, sure, other people can look at this people and learn from them and follow their ways and follow their teachings that they learned from the Most High. Other people can look at that and learn if they choose to. And we know strangers came into Israel and some of them chose to follow the instructions of the Most High as Israel learned it and taught it the way Israel was living. But it was given to Israel, and later on in Micah 4:2, Isaiah 2, verse 2 and 3, is showing that the other nations are going to, might I express it this way, officially get that introduction to Torah. Now they can find out about it, and those of them who like it will latch on to it. But officially it's going to be rolled out, right? Where Israel should have taught these things before, but Israel fell. But they're going to wake up again and be restored and then teach it to the people who are going to come from the other nations to Jerusalem and learn the ways of the Creator, the teachings of the Creator. So he is saying here, this intermission or this rest on the seventh day or on the Sabbath is going to be a sign, the way that you can tell, or anyone can tell, that you are the people the Creator is dealing with. Now, Exodus chapter 16 and verse 4 to 5, it says, "Then said the Most High unto Moses, Behold, I will rain bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather a certain rate." Remember, manna fell, a certain rate every day, that I may prove them whether they will walk in my law or no. And remember, I just uploaded that lesson yesterday where I talked about people just trusting the Most High, because everybody is going through their testing, and the Most High is proving us based on all these things. And that lesson was called The Most High's Comfort, and it was just showing how people are going through the different things, and through the different trials that we go through in life, the Most High is actually testing us to prove us, to see what we're made of, to see what's really in our heart, how we'll function, how we live, if we will follow his instructions no matter what we have to live through. And one of the best ways that you can tell what's really in a person's heart and what their determination and their proclivity is going to be found in times when they have to go through struggles. Because when things are going well, you can choose to do all kinds of things because you're happy now, you feel good. But when you are pressed and you're in trouble, who you really are comes out in how you maintain the way you are, if you do it well or if you leave off of it. So he's saying, I'm going to prove you through these things. So I'm going to give you bread a certain rate per day, that I may prove you, because he's going to say, okay, on the 6th day, which I'm going to read, you're going to get a double amount. You should take up a double amount so that on the 7th day, my rest, you won't do it anymore. And so he's going to prove them to see if they're going to take the blessings and keep his instructions while taking the blessing. Are they going to not take up any on the 7th day? And if they don't do that, then he's proving right there that they are people who are willing to follow his instructions, because they are also showing that they're going to follow his instructions by not going out on the 7th day to gather this stuff, which shows that they're keeping the instructions regarding the Sabbath. So he says that I may prove them whether they will walk in my instructions or no. Verse 5, and it shall come to pass that on the 6th day they shall prepare that which they bring in, and it shall be twice as much as they gather daily. So they're going to gather twice as much on that 6th day because the Sabbath is coming. That's like their preparation day. They're preparing for the other day when they cannot work, because the Sabbath is dealing with a cessation of your work. You're going to take an intermission or a rest from your work, your regular activities on the 7th day. You're going to take an intermission. So then Sabbath is dealing with rest and intermission. So you bring things to a close that you were doing the other 6 days, and you don't do or resume those activities again until the first day of the new week that's about to come, after the 7th day or the Sabbath closes off the week. So now, if we look here, at etymonline.com for the online etymology dictionary, I look at two words here, rest and Sabbath. Because I told you already, rest, the Sabbath is dealing with rest. Like, if you look in the Strong's Concordance, and here even from the Brown Driver Briggs, the lexicon, it says the Sabbath is dealing with an intermission. So again, you're dealing with stopping something that you're normally doing. You're taking a break from it. Now, rest, etymology of rest, it's saying remainder, that which is left after a separation, from the early 15th century, from Middle French remnant, reste, remnant, to remain, and from that we're seeing here that is dealing with that which is left after a separation. So it's dealing with some kind of a separation. So Sabbath, even in modern times here, as they're dealing with this word, rest, from its use in the early 15th century, and they're telling you even at that time, it was understood that rest is dealing with a separation. So now when you tie that back to what the Sabbath means, it's telling you that the Sabbath is used as a separation from the other days of the week. So when you look at the creation now, hold on, let me find that, because I mentioned it but I didn't actually read it. Genesis chapter 2 and verse 3, and the Most High blessed the 7th day and sanctified it, because that in it he had rested from all his work which he had made. When you look at that word there that says, and he had, because in it he had rested, that word rested is the same intensive that we mentioned, intensive form of Sabbath from H7673 that we mentioned, that H7676 was referring to, which is basically just dealing with the Sabbath, to cease and rest. So when it says he sanctified it because that in it he had rested from all his work, it's kind of like saying he blessed the seventh day and sanctified it because in it he Shabbat from all his work. So that's why I said earlier on that this is just how the Creator was living, and he rolled out the teaching of how he lived to Israel when Israel later came on. And we call it law or teachings, really means teachings. We call it teachings of the Most High because the Most High is teaching us how he operated before what we call law or Torah came. But like I said, law is kind of it's not the proper way to look at that word, right? It's more teachings. So he Shabbat on the seventh day. So the Most High was already living like that. Now, look here now, the same verse. And he blessed the seventh day. And it says seventh, an ordinal number. So basically, the days in creation could have been counted and numbered. So that by the time he got to the seventh day, you know that 6 days had come before that. And once you get through those 6 days, you realize that the next day, which would be counted as day 7, something different began to happen because he was resting on it, right? He did a rest, an intermission, or a Shabbat on that 7th day. So if there was an intermission, that means that the 7th day was set apart and treated in a different manner by the Creator. So Elohim did something different to set that 7th day apart. So let everybody know that it is different in his own mind from all the other days that preceded it. And when you look at the word sanctified there, on H6942, it says Kadash, to consecrate, sanctify, to prepare, to dedicate, be hallowed. You never heard him talk about this in the other 6 days, because the 7th day, the Shabbat, is different from the other days. And even by talking about the 7th day and defining the 7th day like this, even the scriptures are letting you know that this 7th day was something different from the other days that had happened in the creation narrative. And he set that 7th day apart to be consecrated, to be hallowed. So you should honor it and treat it in a different way. It is set apart meaning from the other days. So it does not fit in the category of the other 7 days. So if you'd make a category for all the days in creation, you might then have 2 categories. One, a bigger category than the other. The first category then would be day 1 to day 6. That first category has 6 days, and what identifies all the days in that category would be creative acts or acts of work, where the Most High was doing work, he was doing stuff. In the other category, there would be a different definition and different words used to describe it, because it only has, for difference that sets it apart, only 1 day, whereas the others had 6. It also has a difference in that 1 day, no work was being done in it, no creating was being done in it like the other 6 days in the other category. So it clearly shows that the Sabbath, or the 7th day, is dealing with a different kind of day. It is set apart. It is Kadash, or set apart. Alright, so he ceased, he rested, because he was treating this day different. So according to the etymology of the word rest, which is used to define Sabbath, the word rest, it means, even in modern times, a separation. So this 7th day, or the Sabbath, is separate from the other days of the week because it is different. Now let's look at the other word. The other word is Sabbath. I'll look at the etymology of the word Sabbath and give some information to close this out. Sabbath, from Old English, Sabbath, is dealing with Saturday as a day of rest. And once they say Saturday, they're telling you it's the seventh day that they're talking about, as observed by the Hebrews. From Latin sabbatum, from Greek sabbaton, and from Hebrew Shabbat, properly meaning day of rest. In other words, not day of creation, which means that he was still creating on the seventh day, but it's a day of rest. From Sabbath, because he rested. Now, these two paragraphs here, look at this. Or, well, just this one paragraph. The Babylonians regarded seventh days as unlucky and avoided certain activities. Among European Christians, from the seventh day of the week, it began to be applied early 15th century to the first day, Sunday. So they're telling you that the European Christians went through some kind of a change towards biblical teachings that changed the understanding of the Sabbath from being the seventh day to being the first day. And they did this though no definite law, either divine, meaning from the Creator, or ecclesiastical, dealing with the teachings of Torah, directed the change. So they did this change and switched to Sunday, though no definite law, either divine or ecclesiastical, directed the change. But elaborate justifications have been made. Elaborate justifications because they're breaking from the teachings of the Creator and from what Israel did. They have to go through all kinds of gymnastics, mental gymnastics, to try to justify this change. The change was driven by Christians' celebration of the Lord's resurrection on the first day of the week, a change completed during the Reformation. So that's letting you know right there that the Christians went on to making this change permanent from the Sabbath to the first day of the week, Sunday, even though there was no law based on Torah or based on the practices of the Hebrews, right? They're making this change even though no definite law or teaching was there from old times. So they did this on their own, of their own choosing. Now, from BibleLight.net, we're talking about, well, I'll just read it here, a contemporary of Emperor Constantine and Pope Sylvester I was Eusebius Pamphili, lived from 260 to 341 AD. He was Bishop of Caesarea in what they're calling Palestine. We know that's just a trick word, but about 330 AD, he wrote, "All things whatsoever that it was duty to do on the Sabbath, on the seventh day when the Most High rested, that is, these we have transferred to the Lord's Day," meaning Sunday, "as more appropriately belonging to it." So that's what I'm saying here. They're changing it now to Sunday and doing it on their own and making it a law that the seventh day should not be treated as a Sabbath anymore, but whatsoever you are doing on or that you have learned of the seventh day or the Sabbath should be ported over to or credited to Sunday, the first day of the week, which is the Christian teaching of the important or set apart holy day. No, the set apart day is the seventh day. So he says, all these things for the Sabbath, we have transferred it to the Lord's Day as more appropriately belonging to it because it has precedence, right? So they're giving the first day, Sunday, as having precedence because they are not dealing with Torah. They're not dealing with what the Hebrews taught. They're not dealing with what the Hebrews got from the Creator as a Torah instruction. And they're treating the first day as having a rank above the seventh day that the Creator said. And it's more honorable than the Hebrew Sabbath. Eusebius commentary on Psalm 92, and they go on to give the rest of the information right there. So what we're seeing here is that this Sabbath day was just simply changed in the Roman Empire. This Sabbath day was just simply changed in the Roman Empire, which is coming from old Babylonian influence and practices anyway, to confuse things. Because as I read to you before, from the Etymology of Sabbath, that the Babylonians regarded 7 days as unlucky. And that's just because the Babylonians are dealing with teachings that are bringing confusions, as from Babylonian is dealing with Babylon, which is dealing with Babel, which is dealing with confusion by mixing, according to what the word means. So they are confusing people until they finally were able to make it more permanent now that the Sabbath should be changed to the Sunday. But that's only changed in the minds of people who don't have understanding, people who are taught that. But what the world needs to do, especially Israel, is to return to the Sabbath of the Most High, which is the seventh day, and we're calling it Saturday now, but it was just simply called the seventh day initially. All right, so I hope this is of understanding to some people who are dealing with this, as I've talked to some people who don't agree and don't like it, and they're not even saying they don't understand, they just don't like it. And that's what bad teaching does. And I grew up like that, where I was in a Christian church that taught me Sunday, 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 but now that I'm older, I know it, I understand it. And so I'm sharing it with us. The Sabbath shows a covenant relationship with the Most High. People who are having the covenant relationship with the Most High from the nation of Israel who are now scattered, you need to return to reverencing the Most High's instructions and words by keeping the seventh day Sabbath. That's what the Most High says. I'll read again from Exodus chapter 20 and verse 8. From the commandment, which we normally say is the fourth commandment, it says, remember the Sabbath day to keep it Kadash, keep it set apart. Where on that day, you're not going to do the regular things you normally do. It's a different day. It has been set apart to be treated differently. It is the Sabbath of the Most High, or it is a different day that connects you with understanding and covenant from the Most High. Shabbat Shalom.